I've seen a bunch of movies this year, both new to 2024 and before, and I thought I'd give the best 10 recommendations of what I've seen this year. This is my first time recording a video like this, so hi, I guess. Obviously, this is very subjective, and it's more a light-hearted review and recommendation of different movies I've seen this year. I think even I would rate them differently in a month, and this certainly isn't my top 10 ranking of all movies, just the ones I've seen in 2024. Anyway, to start, I think I'll give some honourable mentions. These are films that didn't make the top 10, but were still brilliant and I really enjoyed. I just didn't want to put the same genre of sci-fi and action, which are my two favourites, all in the top 10. I wanted to spread it out a bit. So these films could have very easily made the top 10. To start with some classics, I have to mention Braveheart, The Truman Show, and Inglourious Basterds. The Truman Show is about a man basically living inside a simulation and trying to escape it. The film's actually quite scary if you think about it and the concept it follows. I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. Inglourious Basterds is a World War II film following Nazi hunters against the very well acted villain Christopher Waltz's character. The film is quite violent and felt very unique to the usual war film, which I really enjoyed. I'd give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Braveheart is all about Scotland versus England back in the medieval times. This was made by Mel Gibson, who also made Hacksaw Ridge, which is one of my favourites, and this one certainly didn't disappoint. It follows a historical character of William Wallace, who is an epic figurehead and great main character. I thought it was a very decent movie, though 7.5 out of 10. Now for some new 2024 films. Juror 2 was a very engaging drama where a man on the jury of a murder realises he may have accidentally committed the crime. This was a real test of what is the right decision, and the whole writing and story kept you engaged overall. This was a solid 7.5 out of 10. Civil War was based on America divided and in war. We follow the story of journalists aiming to cross the country and interview the president. As a movie, it's a very intense one. I would clearly recommend it because I can see it's a very well made movie. But my goodness, the jump scares. You were warned. I'd give it a 6.5, but I think most people would give it a bit more higher. Paddington 3, The Goat of Goat. Now, Paddington is only not in the top 10 because the first two were absolutely amazing, with Paddington 2 being one of my favourite films ever. This as a movie was still brilliant and one of my favourite funny films of the year, if that's saying anything about my humour. Easily an 8.5 out of 10. Inside Out 2. I think it's widely agreed that Inside Out 2 was a very well made film, and an accurate representation of emotions during teenage years. Out of the more limited animation I watched this year, Pixar does produce a very well made film. So, 7.5 out of 10. One Life. This is actually based on Nicholas Winton, who wanted to save Jewish people from the Nazis during World War II. The ending is my favourite part of the movie, with Anthony Hopkins giving an amazing performance. But yeah, I'd recommend it as more of an emotional movie. 7.5 out of 10. The Promised Land follows a farmer who wants to farm his crops on a field that the government thought unplantable. He comes into clash with a rich guy who wants the land, and it's about the conflict between these two classes and the ambition of the farmer. I love Mads Mikkelsen and he delivered a great performance. 7.5 out of 10, easily. After Sun. Wow. As a movie and from a reviewer's perspective, I'd give it as an 8 or 9. As to how much I enjoyed it, it was quite sad, so I'd recommend it, but it's more emotional and quite different to the cinematic films we get today, which I still like, and I love what A24 are doing. And the final honourable mention, The Theory of Everything. This is a biopic on Stephen Hawking's life that I found really interesting, and honestly, if you want to feel inspired and amazed, just go watch this movie. Solid 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time for the best recommendations of the year. I couldn't shrink it down enough to 10, so had to end up with a top 12. I've tried to include a wide range of genres, whether it's sci-fi, action, drama, romance, emotional, historical, or mystery, and maybe a little bit of comedy. At number 12, we have The Stanford Prison Experiment. This is very much related to my psychology A-level and was kind of why I watched it. But if you haven't heard of The Stanford Prison Experiment, then let me describe it to you. There's this crazy guy called Zimbardo who wants to see what humans can do if you put ordinary people in prisoner roles or guard roles. Half of them as prisoners, half of them as guards. Will the guards go crazy and violently attack the prisoners? Or will the prisoners rebel? And will the experiment become very concerning? Well, I guess we'll have to see. I find this experiment very interesting, and I thought the movie was very enjoyable and fun to spot things I'd learned about before. So there may be a little bit of bias, but I think even from a new viewing it can be very interesting. So I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. At number 11, we have Dune 2. This is new to 2024 and one of the most popular, and I think it did deserve a spot. Being a big Star Wars fan, I think it does have a lot of similarities to Star Wars, and I still love sci-fi in general, so it was great. I think it just missed out on being a masterpiece, but that's just my opinion. The music by the GOAT of music's Hans Zimmer was peak. And obviously the acting was amazing. Overall, a solid 8.5 out of 10. At number 10, we have 5 Feet Apart. Now I don't really watch many romances, but I can definitely recommend this one, as it was a bit different to what you would usually think as a romance. The two main characters have a condition called cystic fibrosis, which means they can't go near each other or kiss or anything like that. I don't know the doctor stuff to do with it, but that's basically the principle of it. You could say it was an emotional roller coaster, but overall very well executed. So I'd give it an 8.5 out of 10. At number 9, we have another big one, Gladiator 2. I know the whole discussion of whether we needed a sequel is there, but for a sequel, I was engaged and enjoying it just as much. Denzel Washington was definitely my favourite character of this new film, and I can feel an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor definitely coming his way. He continued the themes of the first film very well, and because I love history and historical epics, I'd give it an 8.5. If you haven't watched the original Gladiator, definitely go see that one first. At number 8, we have Beautiful Boy. This movie follows Timothy Chalamet with Steve Carell as his father. Honestly, I can't recommend this movie enough because overall the whole cast's acting were amazing, but specifically those two acting were phenomenal. His son Nick is a drug addict, and this movie tells the story of his drug addiction and how difficult it is to escape it, even though you can see from his character that he wants to. It is a very emotional one and most definitely a 9 out of 10. At number 7, we have Children of Men. Set in a dystopian setting, the world is chaos and dangerous. No one has had a child for 18 years and people are infertile. This was such an impressive film through the cinematography, the writing, and especially the lead character's acting. For a very different concept, it was executed very well. I think I've included a lot of different concept films, but if you wanted to try one of them, I definitely recommend this one. I would give this one at least a 9 out of 10. At number 6, we have Twisters, a new film to 2024 and I believe a sequel to the 1996 version. I hadn't seen the older one before, but I don't think it's massively relevant because I enjoyed this film massively. For an action movie, I thought all the action scenes were intense and all the visual effects were amazing. I thought the relationship between the two main characters merged really well, and Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones delivered amazing performances. Giving it a 9 out of 10, it's one of my favourite new action movies of the year, and it was a big surprise. At place number 5, we have Green Book. This actually touches on a very important topic by following a story of a black musician who's been put with a driver who seems to be at the start very racist. We learn of the prejudice and the segregation in the 1960s that black people had to face, and honestly this was another great development of relationships between the two main characters. The ending was really lovely, and all the awards and nominations this movie got I think were all deserved. Definitely a 9 out of 10. At number 4, we have Conclave. I saw this only a few weeks ago at the time of recording, so it's very recent in memory. This also surprised me based on how good it was. The Pope has just died and the lead Ralph Fiennes, or Fiennes, is in charge of replacing him. The whole event creates factionism and is intense and suspense throughout the whole movie. Also, the visual shots were so underrated here. Honestly, all performances were very interesting and engaging and brilliant. Another brilliant surprise and a solid 9.2 out of 10. Now, in third, I thought it was fitting to have the trilogy section. My favourite trilogy of films was The Planet of the Apes and The Maze Runner. Watching these for the first time, I thought they were amazing. Planet of the Apes might be one of my favourites. I'd give Dawn of the Planet of the Apes a 10 out of 10. I absolutely loved it. And that ending shot of the movie might be one of my favourites ever. The other two were a solid 8 or 9, and Andy Serkis as an actor for Caesar was absolutely amazing. And we don't forget Maurice. I did see the new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes this year, and I thought it was pretty good. I gave it a 7.5, but that isn't part of the trilogy I'm talking about, and I might mention it in future videos. Maze Runner, on the other hand, might be my favourite teenage dystopian. All the movies were a solid 9 for me. The whole execution musically, visually, and the performances were amazing. And as an action science fiction thriller, that's all I want. It also had its emotional moments as well. I'm looking at the third movie, if you know what I mean. So if you want to watch any epic trilogies, I'd recommend those two. In the number 2 spot is The Prestige, another Nolan movie ticked off, and it's absolutely brilliant. We follow two magicians battling it out to top the other and get the better trick, with the writing here being some of the best writing I've ever seen. Honestly, the plot twists I could never have seen coming, but when you watch it back you notice all the details you missed. The whole message was, are you watching closely? And when you rewatch it, you do spot them all. So if you do want to watch this movie, please do not be spoiled beforehand. It's so worth it when you experience it all new for the first time. And also, both Jackman and Bale were brilliant. Jackman in a theatre role might be his best role. Overall, a 10 out of 10. And in the number 1 spot, we have The Wild Robot. If I had the time, I'd very easily go see it for the third time. I don't know why I loved it so much, but everything about this movie was amazing. The music was my favourite score of the year. The animation style I think is very similar to painting, and that's how they create it, but it's some of the best animation I've seen, and I really hope DreamWorks continue this style because it was really stunning. The voice actors were so great you wouldn't even know they were big actors, but the story is what I love the most. There are arguments to say it's a kids movie, but it's at the cinema and I saw it still and massively enjoyed it. But even if it is a kids movie, I thought it did have some dark tones of death and loss. But overall the message was clear and powerful, and it was an emotional film as well. An 11 out of 10 and my favourite movie I've seen this year. And finally, as 2024 ends, the 2025 film catalogue is looking very interesting. The big names are How to Train Your Dragon, the live action version, which I'm of course hyped for because I want to hear my favourite score in the cinema and see how it delivers in live action. There's always hesitancy, but it's done by the same director and I've no doubt he has a vision of how to deliver. I'm going in positive and hopeful that it will be amazing. Also we have Warfare, which is an A24 war movie which is set in Iraq that I thought looked really interesting. I'd recommend watching that trailer if you're interested. We have Formula 1, which is a movie I'm personally interested in and I hope it's good. Mission Impossible 8 with such a good trailer, I thought it really hyped me up. I might be overreacting a little bit, but I really do like this franchise and I think it could be a great end to it. And the new Jurassic World by Gareth Edwards, who made Rogue One and The Creator, which I really like. So I'm really hyped for that because I know he can deliver. Finally, it'll be about a year, but Avatar 3 is coming hopefully for next September, so it will probably be a best performing film again, but I hope it's good. There we go, thank you for hearing my film recommendations. Sorry if I only briefly explained what some of the films were about, but hopefully a few of these recommendations still piqued your interest, even if they weren't in the top 12. I've been Jacob, and have a lovely rest of your day.